What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at Blade. I'm gonna waste no time. I'm gonna get right into it. I love the movie Blade. I think Blade is a cool as fuck movie. I remember watching this thing in 1998 when it was in theaters. I saw it twice in theaters. When I had the tape, I used to watch it 10 times over a week, I should say. That's how much I love the movie of Blade. It's just a cool movie, and Blade himself is just a cool character. So, I'm going to do my best to illustrate my pros and my cons. Let's waste no time. Let's kick right in. Pros. The cast in this movie is spot on. Wesley Snipes as Blade, you can't say nothing about Wesley Snipes as Blade. Wesley Snipes is Blade. He gives Blade his stoic charisma. He gives Blade his badassery. He gives Blade personality. He gives Blade everything Blade needs to be a standout character. From the moment we see Blade, you're instantly just captivated by this man. He has a very sleek look where he's all decked out in black, and he has his trademark sunglasses, and he has a barrage of weaponry that he uses in very creative and innovative ways. And when he's doing to hand combat, Wesley Snipes obviously holds his own because he is a trained martial artist. So yeah, without going too far into why I love Blade the character, I'm just going to leave it at that because it really doesn't need no explanation. Nebuchadnezzar Wright plays the character called Karen, and I like the character of Karen. I like how she's not a love interest. She has a mutual partnership with Blade that doesn't go anywhere beyond that. Blade is not a character who's going to want to take you out to dates or take you out to movies. He is a vampire hunter. That is Blade first and foremost. He hunts and he kills vampires. It just so happens that while Blade was going to finish off a vampire that he almost killed at the beginning of the movie, this particular vampire played by Donald Lown called Quinn actually bites Karen on the neck, and pretty much from that moment to the end, Karen is searching for a cure. But at the same time, she's trying to absorb everything. She's trying to absorb that the real world that she lives in has vampires, and Blade pretty much says, listen, you gotta learn, you gotta wake up and look at the real world. The sugar-coated topping is over. The real world is that vampires exist. And I like how Karen does not question that. She accepts it right away, and that instantly to me makes her very, very likable. Not only that, she can hold her own when she's up when her back's against the wall. That's another reason why she's a cool character. Another great character is the character of Whistler, played by Chris Christopherson. I love the character of Whistler. I like that he's like this grumpy-ish type of old man, but I love the father-son dynamic between Whistler and Blade. You can clearly tell that these two have a love for one another, and in probably one of the best directed scenes in this movie is the scene where Blade pretty much has to watch Whistler die. And because Blade is such a stoic character, but Wesley Snipes gives him the life. You can tell just by the subtle facial expressions that Wesley Snipes has. He did not want to see. He did not want to be a part of his father essentially having to kill himself because he was attacked earlier in the movie and pretty much on his deathbed because he was bitten. But that one scene alone conveys so much emotion, and Blade never changes his tone. He never changes his posturing. It's all just subtle. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. That's the mark of a good actor. That's the mark of good writing. That's the mark of a talented director in Stephen Norrington. But there's more to the Whistler character. As I said, Whistler character is a father figure to Blade, but he's also more than that. He's also his partner. He helps Blade create his weapons. They go out together and they hunt down and kill vampires. And Whistler himself, he's got a good humor to himself. I love the humor that Chris Christopherson gives Whistler. I love the humanity that he gives Whistler as well. Another great and final piece of this puzzle is the character of Deacon Frost, played by Stephen Dorff. I think the character of Deacon Frost is a really, really cool character. I like the relationship that he has with Blade. I like the fact that it was actually Deacon who bit Blade's mother, that indirectly giving Blade his powers. So basically, Blade is half human, half vampire. He has all this strength and no other weaknesses, but Blade has his own weaknesses. He ages like a human, and he has the bloodlust. So that pretty much makes Blade a wild card, so to speak, because if Blade can get to a special serum that Whistler gives him, he's gonna have no choice but to feed in order to quench the thirst. So I love it. I love how that plays into the story on how Blade can if and how Blade can just instantly turn just out of sheer desperation if he's not given a serum to quench his thirst. It's a great ticking time bomb that this movie presents. Now, but back to the character of Deacon Frost. I like the parallel relationship that Frost gives Blade. Again, like I mentioned, Frost was the one who indirectly created Blade, so to speak, and Frost needs Blade for this vampire prophecy that he's trying to come together, which I think is the weakest element in this entire movie. The entire movie is great from a story perspective, but the weakest part of this story is this whole tacked on resurrect the vampire god thing. It's basically a take over the world plot. It doesn't really need to be there. This movie was working just great as a grounded, gritty superhero horror superhero movie with a vampire twist to it. I think the whole supernatural blood god element kind of weighed the story down a little bit, and I didn't really care for it. I don't really like it. I mean, it doesn't hurt the movie. It doesn't really doesn't make the movie unwatchable or anything. It's just this big. It's just like a tacked on thing. Like, hey, Blade needs to stop something big. We need to give Deacon Frost a reason to do something, to do things. Personally speaking, I think some of Deacon's best stuff is this rivalry that he has with the pure-blooded vampires. Deacon pretty much is a half vampire, but he wants to take over the entire vampire nation. But to do that, he has to wipe out the pure-blood vampires who kind of run the vampire underworld and have a secret treaty with the humans that allows them to live, that allows them to coexist in a peaceful way. But Frost says, listen, vampires are the top of the food chain. These people aren't our friends, they're our food. So you kind of got the old way of thinking versus Deacon Frost's new way of thinking. It's pretty cool stuff that the movie really should have put more focus onto, because the vampire politics and what they presented in this movie, very, very intriguing stuff. And it's really a shame that kind of was just there, and this whole Umaga thing was really the thing that was the prime focus. Didn't really care for that. Did not care for that at all. But aside from that, everything else is fantastic. As I mentioned, Stephen Norrington, fantastic choice to direct this movie. He gives this movie a gritty, grounded, comic book stylish approach. Cinematography in this movie is fantastic. Like I said, the directing is great. This movie does not feel forced at all. Everything goes at a very natural way. The pacing in this movie is well done. The action and fight sequences are all brilliant. The humor in this movie is character-based and not cringy. A lot of the humor comes from the character of Quinn, played by Donald Lounge, who I think is who's one of my favorite characters in this movie, aside from Deacon Frost and aside from Blade, of course, and Whistler. I think the character of Quinn is a very underrated character in this movie. And I've always liked Donald Lounge as an actor. I've always found him to be a very funny guy, and I just love the humor he has in this thing. And I love this little rivalry he has with Blade, because there are two scenes where Blade always takes off the man's arm, and the big payoff is when Blade just wipes him out at the end. It's great, it's funny, it's great stuff. Great stuff. And like I said, I love how this movie, it doesn't set up for a sequel, but it leaves it open for a sequel. Like, it tells a self-contained story, and when the movie's finished, it's finished. It doesn't set up for a sequel. It's like a comic book. It sets up a next adventure that could potentially happen if you choose to want to make it happen. It doesn't have any loose ends that, so there's still more to do. No, Blade pretty much says, listen, this fight was won today, but there's always but the war goes on. It doesn't set up for a sequel. It just sets up what Blade's character is to begin with. All right. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Blade. As you can tell, I love this movie. I'm gonna give it a solid 9 out of 10. This movie only gets better with age. Over 22 years old, and I still love this movie. I'm 30, but this movie is 22 years old. It's still a great watch. It's still so much fun. And to me, Blade will always be the definitive black superhero. I don't care about Black Panther. Blade came back before Black Panther, and Blade was cooler and still is cooler. And I am really very interested to see what Mahershala Ali does with the character when his portrayal is eventually given to us. But as where I stand with the original incarnation of Blade, 9 out of 10. If you haven't seen Blade in a long time, go out right now and watch it, because you're missing out on something that's just generally fun and awesome. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.